Let's read together. Australia Reads recently did a huge piece of research and found that people want to read more, but they don't know how to. So I've decided that every day I'm going to read for 15 minutes on YouTube, and you can watch it whenever you want. But what I want for you to do is for you to also read for 15 minutes a day. Just sit down and read. Put a timer on, and I've got mine here ready to go with 15. Put the timer on, have a drink of water. Now, this is very important. If you're a regular reader aloud to other people, you might be a parent reading to children. You could be like me. It could be a therapist and you read in groups, or you read to supervisees, or you read aloud because it helps you to remember things. Whatever it is, make sure that your vocal cords are hydrated. So let's begin. I am going to turn on my timer for 15 minutes, and I'm just going to read from this book, which is a new book, and I haven't read the whole thing yet. Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading by Bijal Shaw. Now, you can buy this book on her website if you want, and it's available in many places. But I'm a bibliotherapist. She's a bibliotherapist. I'm doing my PhD in psychoeducation and bibliotherapy, so it makes sense. But for you, I just want you to read for 15 minutes every single day, and I'm going to be here encouraging you. So here we go. Start 15. Chapter 1, The Discovery of a Novel Therapy. If the head and body are to be well, you must begin by curing the soul. That is the first thing. And the cure, my dear youth, has to be effected by the use of certain charms. And these charms are fair words. And this was said by Charmides Plato. August is my birth month. It's my son's and my grandfather's too. For me, it's always been a month of magic. Not that I am remotely superstitious. It's the month when novel, exciting coincidences, unexpected connections, and quite simply, some of the happiest moments have manifested. I've always thought of it as a time of divine intervention, and the August of 2007 was no different. I vividly recall an epiphany that I had that month that sowed the seeds for the birth of this book. There are a few moments of realization so striking that they render everything else mundane by comparison. But it's these moments that take you by surprise and make life exciting and full of wonder. Novelist Virginia Woolf encapsulates this feeling in a review she wrote in 1917, describing certain moments which break off from the mass, in which, without bidding things to come together in a combination of inexplicable significance, to arrest those thoughts which suddenly, to the thinker at least, are almost menacing with meaning. While I was training to be a counsellor, one of the prerequisites of my course was that I needed to be in therapy myself. A specific session still looms large in my mind, as it was the first time I opened up about a traumatic childhood experience. I remember sitting by the window in a snug blue armchair in my therapist's small, flowery office. It was a summer's day, and as the sun grazed my skin, I felt warm and comforted. In the relaxed atmosphere, I found myself speaking out of being trapped as a young child, and how the fear from that day had continued to haunt me well into my adulthood. Simply revisiting the memory would trigger symptoms that mimicked those of post-traumatic stress disorder, flashbacks, panic attacks, overreactions, and the irrational feeling of having no escape. Overwhelmed by emotions that I had no way to process as a child, I turned to books as my sanctuary. Reading allowed me to dodge my pain, and it became my means of detaching from the world around me when things became ugly or difficult. Earlier that day, before meeting with my therapist, I'd been reading Hanya Yanagara's A Little Life, a novel about love and friendship that is really about the legacy of childhood trauma. The protagonist, Jude, is subjected to abuse from a very young age, and the resulting trauma continues to shadow his every move as an adult. Jude's story resonated with me, not because his experience closely mirrored mine. My own moment of terror had been a one-off and drew no similarities to what had happened to Jude, but because, like Jude, I still carried the fear and pain of my childhood with me. Time and time again, I would find myself reliving the past in the present. When faced with a vaguely threatening situation, I would snap back to being 4 years old again, trapped, helpless, and terrified. The trauma of that moment would reverberate for years to come, continuing to have an impact on both my body and mind. I became someone who was desperate to please and completely conflict adverse. The thought of conflict made me so uncomfortable. It was easier to give in and be nice in order to maintain the peace, even if this meant silencing my own voice and ignoring my needs. I had never spoken about that memory to anyone until it played out in front of me in the pages of A Little Life. Quote, "He was an optimist. Every month, every week, he chose to open his eyes to live another day in the world. He did it when he was feeling so awful that sometimes the pain seemed to transport him to another state, one in which everything, even the past that he worked so hard to forget, seemed to fade into a grey watercolour wash. He did it when his memories crowded out all other thoughts, when it took real effort, real concentration to tether himself to his current life, to keep himself from raging with despair and shame. He did it when he was so exhausted of trying, when being aware and alive demanded such energy that he had to lie in bed thinking of reasons to get up and try again." End of quote. Now the memory sat there on the pages, floating. I didn't know what to do with it. All I knew was that I felt very compassionate towards Jude and in turn towards myself, something I hadn't really experienced before. For the first time, I was seeing myself through new eyes. I wrote everything down in my journal and brought it to my therapist. "Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD," she said. "There's unresolved trauma. It's not surprising the book prompted your memories of childhood trauma. Art, and in this case literature, has an uncanny way of drawing out these memories. The book feels like a safe place from which to carry out your own self-examinations at a distance, as it allows you to develop a better understanding of your own character by exploring the experiences of others. After all, everything that we process is really filtered through our own lens of experience." She paused, waiting for me to respond. I stayed silent. I wanted to know more, learn more. She continued, "Have you heard of the case of Aeschylus?" "No," I responded, curious, "but I'd love to hear about it." "Aeschylus," she explained, "was an Athenian soldier who fought bravely in the Battle of Marathon. Strangely, despite not having been dealt a single blow in a battle, he was reported to have suddenly lost his sight. Aeschylus never regained his vision, and when asked how he came to be blinded, he recalled that a gigantic warrior with a huge beard, which shaded all his shields, stood against him, but the ghostly semblance passed him by and slew the man at his side. He had imagined the phantom passing through his body, and this had resulted in the loss of his sight." Whether in a contemporary novel, whether in a contemporary novel or the account of an ancient Greek soldier, I found myself empathizing with the protagonist's experience of PTSD. Or perhaps it was the other way around. The protagonists were empathizing with me and validating my own experience as a story to be examined and resolved. This is one of the many superpowers of literature, the ability to empathize and to be empathized with. In his own book, Our Better Angels, psychologist and best-selling author Steven Pinker explains that society as a whole experienced an increased capacity for empathy during the Enlightenment. And in some ways, this correlates with the rise of the novel, especially British epistolary novels such as Samuel Richardson's Clarissa and Pamela. The epistolary novel takes the form of a series of letters, diary entries, or other written correspondences between characters, enabling multiple perspectives, realism, and intimacy. It allows unique access to the character's innermost thoughts and feelings. We might feel more connected to the protagonist or narrator on an emotional level, giving us a better understanding of their motivations, fears, and desires. The conversational style feels more authentic and realistic, while the multiple perspectives allows us to see the story or events from different points of view, giving us a stronger picture of the overarching narrative and the interpersonal relationship of the characters. This further deepens our emotional investment in the story, increasing our ability to empathize with the characters and immerse ourselves in their experiences. Reflecting on this idea, I was reminded of two novels, although not epistolary, that I felt particularly drawn to. The first was George Eliot's Mill on the Floss, which I had read as a teenager, and the deep connection I'd felt to its heroine, Maggie, who constantly sought approval from a stern older brother. Secondly, my thoughts also turned to Konstantin Levin in Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, a character who ruminated intensely over what makes life living. I felt incredibly soothed and comforted after reading the tragic yet profoundly human stories of these characters. It was as though I was validating and healing my own wounds by connecting to their experiences, relieving me of my pain and kickstarting the recovery process. It felt liberating. While thinking about these three novels, I realized that literature had provided an outlet for me to address darker, knottier emotions that I had shielded away from in my own reality. Was this because I felt in control when reading? I could choose when I wanted to put down my book, and perhaps this provided a sense of security. The more I considered it, the more the process of reading began to resemble the elements present in a therapy room, a relationship with someone with whom you felt safe to explore your innermost thoughts and feelings, and the agency to walk away if it all felt too much. It dawned on me, was the literary relationship between text and reader a therapeutic one? As I processed this, I was compelled to find out more about literature as a therapeutic medium. So as soon as I got home from my session, I Googled literature as therapy. I came across a definition in a piece by Debbie McCullough in the Journal of Poetry Therapy titled Bibliotherapy, Historical and Research Perspectives, and I immediately clicked on it. Quote, bibliotherapy is derived from a combination of two Greek words, biblion, meaning book, and therapia, meaning healing. The term bibliotherapy was coined in 1916 by Samuel McCord Crovers, 1916, a Unitarian minister and essayist. Initially, the term was used to describe literature used in counseling people suffering from mental illness. The earliest formal definition of bibliotherapy appeared in the 11th edition of Dorland's Illustrated Medical Dictionary in 1941. In 1961, Webster's Third New International Dictionary's definition of bibliotherapy was accepted by the American Library Association, the use of selected reading materials as therapeutic adjuncts in medicine and psychiatry. Also, guidance in the solution of personal problems through directed reading. End quote. Intrigued and transfixed, I went down a rabbit hole of web searches. Therapeutic literature was often viewed as a supportive or adjunct psychotherapy. As a book lover, this was music to my ears. I wanted to go deeper still to a wonderland where the whole emotional richness of the literary world could take hold. Reading had always felt cathartic for me, but now I had a name for its ability to help process my emotions. Bibliotherapy. The word rolled delightfully off my tongue. For the next few days, I read research papers and articles, explored studies that tested the hypotheses of literature as a therapeutic medium, and delved into the practice's rich history. I knew I had landed on something remarkable, and I had a sudden and impatient desire to share this with others who would also benefit from it and thrive thanks to the healing power of reading. A short history of bibliotherapy. This section details the evolution of bibliotherapy and chronically explores the world of both early and modern-day pioneers of bibliotherapy. Some of the ideas and history I outline were inspired by the research of Dr. Kelda Green, who I interviewed for an article in 2020. Dr. Green's research as part of her doctoral thesis at the Centre for Research into Reading, Literature and Society at the University of Liverpool focused on rethinking therapeutic reading. Here I synthesize some of her ideas and include my own sources and supporting research. The ancient Greeks. This means I'm going to get all the names wrong. Book therapy or bibliotherapy can be traced back to the ancient Greeks who built libraries not dissimilar to the libraries of today. Their influence on language, politics, education, philosophy, science, literature, and the arts can still be felt to this day, which is a testament to their dedication and commitment to learning. In fact, the Greeks played a pioneering role in the development of a number of literary genres, including poetry, theatre, and the novel, all of which form the foundations of therapeutic literature. For example, the great philosopher Aristotle argued that tragedy was a form of art, and there we go, that's 15 minutes. So I think we might have read about 16 pages. No, that can't be correct. We've read 6 double pages, just one moment. And already we are above average because most people do not read for 15 minutes a day. So that's it. I'll be back tomorrow with another 15 minutes. Go and buy the book if you want to read along with me, or just watch it and listen to it. And that is also considered a form of reading. Ciao.